Misty Flowers is the executive director of NICWIC. She is a member of the Santee Sioux Nation of Nebraska and is a descendant of the Tlingit of Alaska and Ho-Chunk.
With special guest Angie Walker from Winnebago Preserving Native Families Unit.
Ampatu washte, tante washte na pitch usapi. Ampo mini bojande mie na washichu ya Misty Thomas Flowers the Makapie. I want to say good day to you all and welcome to another episode of In the Sweetgrass. We are here today with Angie Walker. She is from the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska, and I will let her introduce herself, but she works with the Family Preservation Program over in Winnebago. And we are excited to have her with us and talk about the Family Preservation Program and also just kind of like Winnebago culture in general. And so to get us started, Angie, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Sure. I'd like to say good afternoon to everybody, and excuse me for my throat. But I want to say that my name is Angie Walker. My Ho-Chunk name is Ahushinishinawinga. I am from the Eagle clan. My mother is Sheila Snow Walker, and my father is Michael Thomas Walker. And I was born and raised here in Winnebago, Nebraska. And I am a mother of three, a daughter, 2 sons, and a grandmother to 6. I have 4 granddaughters and 2 grandsons. And my husband, his name is Shannon Walker Pofabity. So that's a little bit about me, as well as I am currently the Preserving Native Families Program Manager for the Winnebago Human Services, and I am under the Child and Family Services. Our unit is located here in the Neola Walker Building in Winnebago, Nebraska, and that's a little bit about me so far.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Angie, for joining me today. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your role with the Winnebago tribe and about the Preserving Native Families program?
Sure. This program, the Preserve Native Families Unit, was developed about 3 years back, and we're part of this unit within Child and Family Services for our tribe. And the program consists of myself as the manager, and then I have 6 staff members within this unit. I have 2 family cultural support workers. I have one his name is Thomas Snowball Sr., and then the other is Nona Buffalo Calf. And then I also have 2 family support workers, well, 3, I take that back. I have 3 now, family support workers, and they are Candace Pear, Selena Snake, and Jenny Parker. And then I also have 1 permanency caseworker, and her name is Jackie Little George. And then those are my staff at the current moment, but I also have available positions that I am still seeking, which would be a licensing and support specialist, and then a youth advocate. And then those are who I have right now. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So, especially for people that may not like understand or know like what family preservation is, can you tell a little bit more about what the staff do, what the program does to help support families and children when they are in foster care?
Yes. What we do is within house is we have our child and family caseworkers, and they collaborate with our team, with our unit. And in that unit, we have a variety of services available. The Preserve Native Family Unit also works with social services as well. But I want to mention that our majority of our cases, our majority of our work is for our children and our families that are within the system, whether or not that is seeking families, their placement, kinship, We assist with kinship findings. We also help with, we call it the family trees. We're in that aspect of trying to find their family members, when it comes to that. We also work with the families if there is, say, a family team meeting is needed. My staff will work with the caseworkers and collaborate with the families and bring them in and have those types of meetings. To work with that family and to figure out what we can do to be of service to them in the time of need, what whether or not it's maybe it's even a home visit. Maybe it's a doctor appointment. Maybe it's other things of, like, say if a child within our department is undergoing, maybe they're having a crisis. Maybe it's something that my staff, are called in, and then they want us to go and meet with those children, whether or not it's at their school, or elsewhere. We can set up times for that so that my staff, we're like a neutral party. We're not actual CFS caseworkers, but we're actually a unit that is here to help preserve that family, but then also to help work on those topics and those issues that they may be undergoing, and just to help them to communicate with each other, as well as with that caseworker, and then working with their whether or not they also need a culture plan. So in those things, that my staff works with the caseworkers as well, and then we work on a plan for them, whether or not these children are going to be here locally where they're available, meaning that they see our local events that occur, or if they're elsewhere, with not within our close proximity. So then in that, then we have our family support, cultural family support and family support, that may go and visit them, depending on where they're at, depending on the situation. We also help them with, some of our families may not have, like a Ho Chunk name, or may not have regalia. Maybe they want to dance at our powwows. Maybe they want more information on those types of things. So then what my staff do, whether or not they help with teaching them, or they may help them sew, or they may do it for them. It just depends. Or if my staff is unavailable, we'll reach out to other within our community and link them to those individuals, and we help to provide that, as well as, like when our youth, some of them who have graduated as well, that we support them in those efforts as well. Maybe they need more one-on-ones with our worker, meaning one of my team on the unit, that they, how they open up more to maybe this individual than that one. So then I'm like, okay, well, who will fit best for that family? And then that's what it's up to me as a manager to decide with my staff. And then we go over that, like, how can we help? How can we work with this individual? And then also working with the other enrollment, those types of things. Sometimes our children aren't enrolled, but they're under ICWA and all these other things. They are eligible for enrollment, or all those things. So we work with our tribal enrollment here in Winnebago, and then also help them to guide them and direct them, like where they can go for those types of services. And then also sometimes some of our families, a lot of them may have moved away, over the years due to relocation and whatever else that may have happened. And then they're coming back home, and then they're like, now, and sometimes, even myself being out in the community, or, all these different things, sometimes I am contacted as well to say, Angie, can you help me? I just have, we have requests, like it can be daily, it could be weekly, different things where we're on our website, Winnebago Tribe website. And so in that we get emails, or we get telephone calls, I'm from this state or that state, and how do I, this is, yeah, I've been away for so long, all those different things. So it's kind of helping those families as well to try to find other relatives that throughout time, as our elders are leaving us, sometimes, then they're like, wow, then the younger ones are coming back and saying, I want to know where I come from, who I belong to. And so we kind of assist with that. And then as well as other things, we do family group decision making as well. I know that takes a little bit longer, but in that process, it's getting all the family together, that individual, that child, that parent, caregiver, um, relative, whoever that child is placed with. And if they want that type of service, we do that. We can provide that for them, and we can help them work it out amongst themselves to say, this is our safety plan, or this is what we want to do, or this is our goals of how we're going to make things better, or how we're going to make things more, um, building that foundation back is what I want to say, in some of those instances. And then also we're kind of branching out as well on that preventative side. So we also work within the schools now. We do external referrals. So if our school, we have monthly meetings, so our staff goes, and not all, but we do have somebody there at different times. And so in that, we get these external referrals now as well. And so my staff works with those children as well. Maybe they're having a truancy issue, even though we have a truancy officer and all these things, they've tried, and they're like, okay, let's call them in. Let's see if they can help. And all my staff that I just mentioned earlier are from here, from Winnebago, enrolled members, and they have their own unique gifts that they could bring to the table. They have their own talents, they have their own expertise in certain areas, that one or the other can help. And then we just collaborate together. And that's the good thing in a way, is because we're raised, majority of us were raised, and we're here, we live here in our community in Winnebago, or maybe we're just like not too far from here. But I want to say that we still have those ties, and we still have a variety of knowledge of where each one of my staff has gone in their career, or in their education, or even in their just their cultural upbringing, what they can bring to the table, what we have. And I really am thankful for that, because it is needed, within our families. That's the number one thing we want, is to keep them together as best we can, with what we have. And also we're out there trying to seek those other foster homes, foster parents, foster individuals that are willing and able to take in our families, if there is a emergency. A lot of times, some of the things are just relative placement, which is good too, but that's something that is needed, and that's something that is our sole purpose of this unit, is to do other things, and we're being called upon that too. There's more things coming, and sometimes I even tell my staff, they're like, I don't have these referrals, Angie, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's coming. It's going to come, and it is. So we're even branching out, working with our youth crisis intervention center. That's something that's in the works right now, where we're coordinating, collaborating, going into a partnership with our director up there, Daryl Lapointe Jr. And in that is we're working towards like a residential diversion program, and it's going to be available for our in Winnebago enrolled members. Though it's just going to be for them right now, but I want to say that's something we're working towards, to work in that partnership with them, and then also to provide our services as well in their facility, if in need and when needed. We can do that as well. And we also do other things within. Um, we help with those, like I said, with our youth too, transitioning, when they're coming of that age, high school, all these different things, we work to help them in that field of like, where do you want to go from here? Um, and what do you have available? We have our college, our community college here. We have other areas that they can work and so forth. But we try to push that education for them, and try to get them linked to those different universities or different things as well. So we're in a variety of areas. but the main one is, like I said, working within house. But then working also with our social service program here. If they have somebody in their family that may have questions of different things, we do provide certain classes with Albert Pooley's curriculum. So we also have Fatherhood and Motherhood is Sacred. We do those. Jackie is our current facilitator right now. She does in person. And then Nona Buffalo Calf, she does the linking generations by strengthening relationships. She's doing that virtual right now. And then the other ones that we've had was addressing family violence and abuse. And that is I who facilitates that. Although, it's that's a huge need here, as well. So I've been doing those for some time, although just working out the logistics and different things. I've done those virtually, but hopefully I'll move back to doing in person. I feel like people get a lot more when we're in person, but due to, the things that have occurred, COVID, different things like that. And sometimes our families are working or they're going to school or whichever, and they may not be able to come at that certain time. So that's where we try to adjust that scheduling. And that's where I'm at right now, is coming up with that new calendar of those things for our staff. I know Jackie has that, and we were trying to get that going again in January, but due to unforeseen weather issues and different things like that, but we're going to start again in February. And then also with the calendar for events, my unit also works for other things that upcoming in our community, whether or not sometimes we assisted with the MMIW, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. They've done a walk or different things in that aspect. So that was something. Also bringing in trainings too, to our community. We're going to hopefully do that as well. And also with our Winnebago annual homecoming celebration that is held the last week in July of every year. We usually are out there, if not right locally in the powwow grounds, like what happened last year. We actually went to the village market, just a little north of our town here. We held a informational booth and different things where we gave our community information on our program. And a lot of times we do that setup at different things. I know there's going to be powwows, other powwows, mental health powwow that is put on with the YCIC and the other programs. And then there's other powwows, whether it was like the New Year's Eve, different things like that. I know we didn't participate this time, but going forward, and then the health fairs they have here, we try to get out there in our community, and then also participating in other areas like the Siouxland area, different things we try to set up just to, like the Memorial March they had, we were there. And then sometimes we get called into, like if there's like sometimes we have crises that occur. And so sometimes our staff here may say, Angie, we need a meeting, like just, earlier, like, okay, let's set that up tomorrow. So sometimes, those things happen. So we're like, okay, we're here to help. We're here to help this family and our other coworkers, in finding those just to help them along, whichever it may be at that time, what's occurring, and to get them to talk to each other, get them to find a solution to whatever it may be, because that's their life, not mine. I always tell people, and they know their family better than I, but I'm just here to help them along and try to figure those different things out. So does that kind of give you
Yeah.
a little idea?
Oh yeah, it gives me a pretty good idea. I want to commend you and your staff. That's amazing. It sounds like you all are doing a lot and are involved in a lot of things and are a very, very important resource for families and youth. And that's awesome. That's amazing. So I have so my next question, and I know it's kind of a big question, because we know that a lot of times when kids go into foster care, they're not always able to stay with relatives, or maybe
Mhm.
they were adopted out years
Mhm.
ago,
Mhm.
and they're trying to connect or reconnect with their Winnebago heritage. And so what would you say is important for them to know, and to know about your tribe and your culture, traditions, heritage? And I know, like, that's
Mm.
like a super big question. So
Well, currently, um, excuse me. I want to say that, like I mentioned, prior to some of our children being, if they're not able to stay here, like we say, sometimes that happens, or maybe they're in a facility at the time. But in there, we still have our caseworkers that work with us, my unit, and in there, they still have us go and meet with that child. Like I said, if they're local travel, well, it doesn't even necessarily have to be. There may be few states away or something like that, but we will. Maybe one of my staff may go with that caseworker, or may go with that ICWA worker, and may go see them. And go meet with that family, and just to check in with that child and that family they're placed with, to say what are the needs and what's been occurring. How has the progress, is this child progressing, or is this child declining, maybe, in some areas. And so by coming, or even through like Zoom right now, like, our go-to meetings or something like that. Sometimes in those instances, my staff have also went on FaceTime as well. Maybe was able to do that with that child. Maybe have that phone call with that individual, or even write. Sometimes my staff, they may send them a gift, or they may send them a birthday card, or they may, and that sometimes that's out of their own pocket, because they have that. I want to know where our children are going. We are like that. I want to know, how are they doing? Where's the update? Because that's how, we keep, an eye on that as well as best we can. And so in there, like that, whether it's a phone call, FaceTiming, Zoom, or different things like that, are in, like I said, a visit, actual visit. Or it may be, okay, we're going to mail them some items, whether it's books or crafts or different things on our tribe to help them along. Or it may, sometimes maybe they're saying, well, I want to know who my relatives are. And maybe sometimes we're able to help them with the family tree, to say, here you go. Here's, let's help you, and try to help them explain those different things. And then also, one thing too is that what I ask of my staff is, can you, even though it's just in-house now, it's just in-house, I'm talking about, is sometimes I ask them, can you take a picture? I want a picture, because I may not go out like how my staff will, but I want to see what they look like. When we're talking about this child, it's just not, I say it, but I'm going to say it again. They're just not a number to me. I want to know, I want to see, if I can't go in person, sometimes I have. Sometimes I've met with the family because I wanted to see myself too. I'm like, no, I want to go. So I have gone, and then I got to meet with the family and all, where this individual was placed, and I was like, okay, I just wanted to check, and this is, my number. This is, if you have any other, maybe concerns or different things, you can contact me. um, so I like that, at that time, and sometimes, like I've said, and if something, sometimes they're, like I said, sometimes our children are, maybe they, because some of our worker, some of my workers are a little bit older, so then they're like, I really want to, she reminds me of my own grandma, or maybe, this individual reminds me of my auntie or my mom, or however it may be, or my uncle, those kind of things. So then that's where, like, okay, well, if they have a better rapport with that individual, I'm going to send them, we can do that at different, situations, or even, like if they are in a facility, um, maybe they're away for a while. And in that too is a kind of the same thing where we can get an update on them. We can also, if they want one of my staff, they want to have contact with them or speak with them, sometimes we can do that. We can work that out depending on the facility and the individuals, um, on their behaviors or whichever it may be. For maybe it's not a good time if they're in their own lesson plans or their own teaching or their schooling or something like that. But we try to work around that. Um, and like I said, a lot of times it for the younger ones, now that where I'm mainly talking about the little bit older ones, because our young ones, they're, you know, um, we still sometimes we're able to do that as well with our younger ones, even our they're not teenagers yet, is what I want to say. So we've been able to do that as well. Or if we see them out, um, maybe we don't bring attention to them, unless they want that they recognize us, any one of us, and then they may come up to us. I know I've seen that personally, attending an event in the city one time, and one of my staff was there. I was there, but sit in different locations, of course, and whatnot, because we're there with our own families. And this is off the clock outside of work. But these children come up to my staff. They came up, gave her hugs, gave her, all these things, and even wanted her to go out in the arena because it was actually a powwow kind of thing. Actually wanted her to go out in that arena, and she did. So I witnessed that myself. These young children, they know, and I really that was really warming to me that they my staff, they really have that care and that compassion and that concern, for our youth. And it showed me at that time, how that is. This unit, we're growing, and there's like infancy stages in certain areas where we're going. And like I tell my staff, I said it's coming. We're all about we were mainly in-house here, but then we're also going to be expanding outward, and it's just getting them to that idea of, okay, Angie. And so then in there we're working on our mapping of those things, different things, how that flow is going to go. So those are some things I'm sharing with you that is just in the works as of yesterday with one new thing. So that's how quickly things are going with us. It's expanding, and I'm growing, meaning getting the workers on my team. Whereas for a while there, we were only 3 or 4 in that aspect. So it's growing, and I hope for good outcomes, and knowing that once we're out there a little bit further, we can make a difference, in some of these families' lives, that we don't want them to have to come full blown into, a open case. We want to prevent that. And then that's kind of where we're going with these other additional duties that I just acquired yesterday. um, so that's something, just sharing a little with you, that how far we're going to go as well. But myself, I always tell my staff, I say, be mindful and be careful, in how you talk and how you interact with our families, because, this is very delicate. This is, and a lot of us, like I mentioned, we're from here in this community, but then also we have if there is a conflict, I want to say, if there is a conflict, then yeah, I will not send that worker out. I may switch it up with a different one. And sometimes that may happen. It does. So I'm like, okay, then once I know it's like, all right, well, then we'll get you somebody else. We'll find a different worker to help you. And so far, it's going okay. It's working, because like I said, we have a lot of things that may occur within our families, and I like to say that we're there to uplift them. we're there to encourage them. We're there to be a listening ear. We're there to help them through whatever those obstacles and trying to guide them like, okay, well, let's try this. Or maybe they're telling you about, maybe you need to do this and this is why. Or maybe, um, so it's like meeting them where they're at too. Sometimes we have loss in our lives, in our families, and that's what I like to tell people too as well. It's like, well, maybe this is why. It was just this one instance, but they're going through grief and they're trying their best, so maybe we need to go over there and pray for them. So, we've done that as well. Or maybe we can give them some cedar, some sweetgrass, some sage, um, and sometimes dani, that tobacco. But, in those things, that's just, or maybe they don't practice that way, but, still we try to find, what works for them because like I said, that's their family and how they want to grow or not grow, but how they want to enhance that. Whatever is good for them, we try to work with them through that. Or, like if they go to the Catholic Church, Reformed Church, maybe they go to Sweat Lodge, maybe they go to Kego, maybe they go to Native American Church, maybe they go this other route, maybe they, so it's like kind of finding those things out too. And sometimes our youth also ask, um, well, I want a hand drum. Okay. So, I'm thankful that I have one of my cultural family support that he's like, well, there's a story behind that. And they need, yes. So in that, it's not just here, we're going to give you one, but we're going to explain it as well and teach along with that and to respect all those different things that fall into place with that. And then also, with our young women, different things like that. It just, we have a lot of programming here within Winnebago, outside of here, like Ho Chunk Renaissance. They have a lot of Little Priest Tribal College has a lot of those community education classes. I know they have a new flyer out like peyote stitch, beading, moccasin making, regalia. There's what else? Well, quilting, a variety of things. So sometimes we try to help in that area as well, whether or not we try to teach it ourselves or we try to bring that child or that youth. My staff have done that prior to as well, where and it was after hours, of course, because those are like in the evening. So sometimes it was like, wow, and then they weren't here in our community. They traveled to where they were and brought them back, and that was something. It was a little, so I adjusted my staff's time, their work schedule, flexed, their time just so they can do that. Because sometimes our individuals that, yeah, they want to go over there. They want to be a part back in our community, and they want to be knowing also like who all the craft makers are in our community, because we have quite a few, which thankfully we do. And they're sharing that. That's the good part about here in Winnebago. And then also in my unit, I'm about sharing that information because I want our families to feel like they belong here, whether or not they've been elsewhere, or maybe their own family didn't practice that way, or maybe whichever. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll try to help you in what I know or with what one of my staff may know. Like I said, they each have their own creative or talents and different things, or how they can talk to people, the storytelling, even like our weather, all these different things, with those feasts and different things that are upcoming, all those stories. Just a little bit earlier, like I mentioned, we had a potluck here for birthdays and stuff, and then they had somebody pray. My cultural family support prayed. And in there, he talked about that and explained even to our staff in-house what this meaning at this time and all those things, explained it fully so that they are aware, because some of them are non-native. So it's like, okay, wow, and there's a difference now because of that prayer being said and all those different things when we do that anyway. But I just want to say I love it that sharing that information is what I'm saying, sharing it so that it can continue on in our families and you also have that right. Some of our people have that right. And that's one thing too. I'm thankful to have a male in my unit now that I can say, can you talk for us? Because sometimes I'd be like, oh, I'd have to, because a whole chunk way too, the women aren't supposed to talk. If you have your spouse or your son, your uncle, male relative, anyway, they get up and talk for you. So, but sometimes what I'm saying is sometimes I had to, and I had to ask to excuse me for doing that. Even today, right now, I'm on here with you all, but I really had to pray about it as well, because I wanted to do a good job, because I'm talking about our tribe, our people, our work here that we do. And I want to get it across wherever you're coming from, wherever you're looking, or maybe you're intertwined, maybe you're going to be married into our tribe, or vice versa. You have family already here, or maybe you wanted a little bit more information. um, we're here to help, and we're here to help people to find those other resources. Like I said, we have quite a few available, maybe on our websites and stuff like that. But then also, we have different like brochures that we're going to send out, different things, um, and then being set up around in the community. And then, like I said, we're in the process of branching further out. So I hope that, in the coming months and so forth, that we're only going to keep growing and doing a lot of things. Also, we're getting additional space, like a double wide trailer. So also we're going to be able to be, having more events later down the road when that is fully up and running and in place. We're going to be having a lot more activities, my unit, in there for our families. But currently it's kind of limited on space. So going forward, we're always looking forward that, it's going to come, and it's going to get a better. So thank you. Y- Your microphone. Sorry. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I put
Okay.
myself on mute.
Yeah.
Um, and I forgot about it. Thank you for
Mhm.
giving me the heads up. But
Mhm.
I really
Mhm.
thank you for honoring our request
Mhm.
for to be a part of this.
Mhm.
And you've touched, even just that you touch
Mhm.
on something that's really important in your, because you're talking about the roles of men and women, and those are cultural differences, and
Mhm.
really important cultural
Mhm.
differences that I always have to um remind myself, because
Mhm.
our tribe is not necessary. We've got differences like that, like things that
Mhm.
men and women can and cannot do. And I always want to honor and respect those things, especially when we're like going to say a wake or a funeral at in a on another reservation, um because I don't want to disrespect, ways of other tribes. And so I just, so many important things you're talking about. Um, and I just keep thinking about how amazing it is to have you all as a resource for our families, because I'm thinking of, even just a few years ago, that those resources didn't exist, and that you all have built up your department um, to be able to be a good resource for ICWA families, and for, also the CFS cases that are, that are tribal wards. Um, so just an amazing resources for the families. You mentioned a lot of groups, and it and then I was, knowing some of the staff that you have, knowing the kind of heart that they have, and that is part of it too, right? Like they're that they have that, I would say like I would call it a Dakota Chante, a Dakota heart, like that, always giving, of their time, their energy, their own financial resources sometimes. Um, but like I would say like that's being Dakota, but that's being Ho-Chunk, that's being Winnebago. Um, and you know, so I just I'm sitting here and I'm just I'm imagining things and I'm loving it for your families that you all work with. I got to go back to my
Thank you.
my questions here.
Hmm.
Um,
Sorry, I forgot to mention too that this past year we actually helped quite a few of our youth that received a Ho-Chunk name as well. So our program did that for them and their families.
that's awesome. So I mean, there are so many things, when it comes to our culture and traditions. So I mean, let's talk about that for a quick minute. Like, so
Mhm.
how would you explain that to somebody that is non-native or, maybe not connected with their culture, like how important that name is, and whatever you are able and willing to share about that, about the importance of a name and that naming ceremony and how to do that.
Mhm. I would like to say the only way I can say is my own. So if I'm going to talk about myself, is not to say, my way is the only way or how different things like that, or to always just talk about myself. It's not that. But I want to say, when I was a young baby, infant yet, I had my father and my mother, and then my grandmother on my paternal side. She wanted that for me. And then it was through the Native American church, because that's how my family, my father's side practiced, whether, that was one of the prominent um, religion or practices they did at that. My grandmother believed in all religion, but I just want to say that was the way she wanted it for me. And so for myself as an infant, they did that naming for me, and it was in my great grandparents' home on my father's side, like I mentioned. And I was born in January. I just had my birthday, but I just want to say that at that time, what I was told, and then who we had gone to through my family because of our clans. I'm Eagle Clan. I follow my father, so I'm Eagle Clan, and Jock Shep, and that's why my Ho Chunk name that was given. And then actually, who they had asked was Reuben Snake Jr., and he was a well-known Ho-Chunk tribal member that fought for our indigenous people's rights, freedom of religion. And
Mhm.
I want to say, so even that alone, how that connection between my family and who she turned to was the Snake Clan. He was the Snake Clan. Now that was our way, my family's way, and that's who she called upon. So for him, he's the one who we had a NAC Native American Church peyote meeting in my great grandparents' home here in Winnebago, and in that's where I got my name. And Reuben is the one who gave me that name. And in that name, that Ahushunishuniwinga, what that stands for, and the meaning of it is glistening wing. When that eagle is flying and how you see their feathers, and that's how he explained it to me as an adult, because I had to ask, because of my mother, she was more of the Catholic way and different things like that. So when my grandmother had passed, Reuben actually took care of my grandmother as well. So in that, like I said, our clans, that's who we went to, who helped us. And so he took care of that. So as an adult, I had to go and ask, I asked my mom, she said, I don't know. You need to go ask Reuben. He named you, da da da. So I went to him, sat with him in my grandmother's wake and so forth. And he actually told me the meaning and even how to spell it, all those different things. And that to me, growing up, when I had my paternal grandmother, Neola Walker, in that she always told me, be proud of who you are, be proud of where you come from. And then also you belong here. And so in that, with that Ho Chunk name, It was instilled in me from her saying those things to me. And then it meant even more so of greater meaning to me after she had passed, and as I'm here by myself without her physically being here, but spiritually she's always with me. But I just want to say that I also teach that to my own, you have, you have this, you have that, and we have your name. And that's really important, because what they say is when our time comes, when the creator calls us home, mauna, when he calls us home, he's going to call you by that name, and you're going to know it, and you're going to come. Because sometimes, in there, that laid my life out right there, meaning I'm right here, and this is where I belong. Even though, our tribe here in Nebraska, this wasn't our original homeland. We were actually up there in Wisconsin. But in that, even though my grandfathers and stuff had said, Angie, you can go get enrolled up there, and I'm like, no, I this is where I belong. This is where I'm staying. All of that. But I just want to say that is very important to have, because you will grow in as a young adult into adulthood onward into those hills of life, what we talk about too. In there, you're going to have that sense of belonging, like I keep saying, but it does. You have that emptiness if you don't have that at sometimes. You may be lost over here, maybe thinking you're going to join over here, this other, not to say bad, but sometimes our people go into gangs or different things like that. But no, that's not our way. You belong in your tribe, your mother and father, and sometimes you may have your mother from a different tribe or your father from a different tribe. But in there, it's always best to learn about both of your family, whether or not they're from, like I just mentioned. So it's good to know those different ways. And because you are a part of each, that bloodline through you, all of that, you need that to help you when times are good and when times are tough. You're going to fall back on that, and you're going to remember, this is who I am. This is, and that's God given, that we all have that, we need that. And that's why I mentioned a little bit ago that we did those things for some of our families, that youth that didn't have those names. And that's where my staff went back and did these family trees and went and talked to those relatives that may be still in the area or different ways, or maybe even knew, well, can we do this? Do you want to go NAC, or do you want to go the Kigo way, the old way, the traditional lodge? And some chose, no, I want to go that route. I don't, I follow that. And we're like, okay. But if they wanted Native American church, that's how we helped them. And we found one of those spiritual people, meaning those ones that in that clan would, and who has that right to give those names. And then it was a veteran at that. All these different things, you follow, and we try to help in that area of, and it's up to that family, and sometimes, families may say, I want to wait. We don't want to, not right now, but we're going to wait until maybe their birthday or maybe something else, or, so it's a variety. Um, but the importance is there, and it's very sacred to have, and it's not to play around with. It's not to boast about it either. I know I had my great grandmother on my mother's side, all the teachings that she would share with me, and she would tell me, and also, wasn't supposed to, talk, do bad things as well, or, you come from this is what she'd say, when people would do, make me feel sad or do what, different things, negative, whatever. But my grandmother would say, my great grandmother would say, don't be like that. Don't stoop to their level, because you come from a good family, a big family, good family. So don't do that. So I have to remind myself those things, and then how my great grandmother was, she belonged in that old way, the lodge and different things. Even in that, for me to say those things, she even told me, women aren't supposed to talk about that. So excuse me for kind of sharing that with you, because um my mother, she will remind me of those things, as well, of what she was taught, because she was raised by my grandmother, my great grandmother, Victoria, Whitewater, Big Bear is who I'm talking about. So in those things, and how my family are, that I was real, I'm just real thankful, that that was done for me on my behalf at that age. But as long as our children receive those names, however it may come, it's important that they get that they have that, and then they will feel uplifted. They will feel connected. They will feel more more willing, more accepting, and more seeking that knowledge of, hey, this, the meaning, even what that meaning is. And I was like, oh, okay, but not okay, but I'm just saying, it's going to feel that emptiness is what I want to say. It's going to feel that emptiness, especially if we do have our children that may have not had their parents, our grandparents here, or somebody that has done that for them, and they're asking. And that's why we did that this past year back in April. Some of our youth were saying those things to where they were located, who they were placed with at that time. And they're like, and we want that. So my staff, we got together and, we helped them through that. Um, and also gave them like a little gift, to say, and then with their whole chunk name too, written on there, and, kind of gave it to them too, and to help them along. So I hope that kind of explained it.
Yeah, you did. And you shared, again, you touched on quite a few things that are really, really important to know and to
Mhm,
understand. And, just talking about, just that one
mm,
topic of
mm,
the importance of some say an Indian name,
mhm,
but now we say like a Ho Chunk name, Dakota name, Omaha
mhm,
name,
mhm,
how important those things are.
mhm,
Um, while we're on this side,
mhm,
carrying that name throughout our life, and like you said, it kind of laid out your life. And but also, and I know it's important for us too, is like when we're passing on to the next side,
mhm,
to the other side, and how important that
mhm,
name is. So I mean,
mhm,
just talking about just that one topic, there's so much to know
mhm,
and to learn, and
mhm,
to understand. And so
mhm.
I guess I'm kind of wondering, like if what would be like the first thing somebody should do or could do to, to help them if they don't have a whole chunk name.
Well, like I mentioned, one thing we would do, like we just had a request the other day, and I didn't recognize the name. Sad to say, but it was, because maybe they were adopted out. Maybe they were, well, not only that, maybe they married, their family member married, different, um, like I said, they're due to relocation or whichever. Um, so I was like, well, I don't recognize that name. But see, in that, then we sent it over, like to my staff and saying, do you guys recognize this name? And then we're gonna try to see, okay, we're gonna go, maybe even enrollment, maybe we may ask, maybe we're gonna, like I said, each one of us comes from a different family, but maybe we're all related somehow, but still some of us may have remember that name, or they can go to one of their relatives and say, well, who is this? So that's where we start first, is we try to find that name, or was that, or maybe we even look in, the state, Google it, or like if there's obituaries or different things, or maybe if there was like, not to say, but, probate or different things, or sometimes, and, sad to say this, but sometimes, when we go to services, wakes, or different things like that, you will find out sometime, majority of the time, who was all related at those at those times. And especially if they get up and talk or explain who they are and why they're there, or they're paying their respects because of that connection, because of that family, um, different things like that. Because we just have somebody, you know, right now laying in state, they did their services and they were one of relocated.
Mm,
But so in that, even in that, one of my coworkers, she said, well, this, I said, okay, no. Then I asked, well, who is this? And so she explained it and how she was related. So I'm like, okay, all right. Oh, thank you. So even in that, they were able to do what was needed in that aspect. But
mm,
what I'm saying, like for our youth and others that are out there, then in there, that's where we're going to start, is trying to locate where that family name, where that name came from, and then how we're going to link it, and then go from there. And then and do the best we can. And once we know, okay, they came from this clan, or their mom was that, or their dad, or however, then we're going to go from that. And then even if that means, well, okay, well, you got to contact that other tribe. Some of my staff, they will do that. They will try to seek that out and try to find. Um, and sometimes we get the information back right away, sometimes not. So it kind of takes some time. It's not like boom, we have a whole database, right here. We don't, but it may take some time, and we'll do what we can. And then from there, depending on that elder and depending on that clan, then that's where we would go. We would direct them that way, or connect them with that name or that individual, or that, like I said, that elder of that clan. And so that's where we would go. And then depending on, like I said, if you don't necessarily, some people even do this. I didn't get to mention. Some people have done it where they just call that individual who's going to give the name, who they chose, depending on all those different things. And then they just had a meal in their home. They provided a meal. They did the prayer over that family, that child, adult, whomever. And then they talked to them, and then they explained those things to them. And then they gave that name. And then they did it personally like that. They did it in their home with their other relatives around. They can even do it like that, like a private. Well, all of it's private anyway, usually, but I just want to say they can even do it like that. Um, and they can do it also if you want to go way back in there, traditional way, then it's only at certain times when they give that name, whether it's a season, all those things. So then you got to wait for that. Or some even traveled all the way back to Wisconsin, where we have the other lodges up there, and they've gone there. And then they do the whole ceremony for them that route, and then provided that meal, because we're always providing a meal as well, because that's a nourishment, that's sacred, that's a blessing, and all these things. And then also to give back, an offering to that individual, but also how it should be done is you give them that Wonk Sheik Dani too, that Indian tobacco, that Wonk Sheik Dani, to say, can you do this for me? And this is, what I'm asking of you. And then you give that to them. And then that's where that starts as well, and then you go on from there. However, that individual clan, how they do things, then you go from that. So,
I really appreciate you sharing all of that. You've touched on so much, and especially, like, as I think a lot of tribes are relationship based, right? Like
mm-hmm,
we,
mm-hmm,
based on kinship
mm-hmm,
and our relationship, and that, like, also it goes, I feel like it's deeper than non-native in a sense, like, that people within that are related to us by blood, by through even through marriage, or hunka, like we call it hunka, like an adoption ceremony, like that's important. That it almost rises above, I don't know, like not above, but it's just as important or more important than our blood relatives. We were just talking about that because something really kind of amazing happened in one of our ceremonies, and happened by surprise. And my nephew was taken as a relative with another young man. They became brothers, and they are only teenagers. And so the older relatives were explaining to them how important that was and how special that was. And that's a lifetime. And because my nephew lost his brother, and so many good teachings, that so because of that, now he has another brother, and to help him walk on this side. And because that young man, as young as he is, he recognized that, he knew that, he saw that, with my nephew. And so just so many important things you've mentioned, that so that relationship, and then clanship as well. We have our our biological relatives, but then we also have our clans, and relationships, and those roles and responsibilities you've talked about that. And I feel like we could probably talk for hours and hours, and I'm almost wondering if we should do like a follow-up, like a part 2. And and maybe you bring in, I'm thinking of Tom and Mona, where they could help explain some of these things too. Maybe or like that wouldn't be a bad idea. We could definitely set something like that up. I don't I feel bad because I don't want to like cut you off, but my family is waiting for me, and
Yes,
we're
I
gonna
understand. Yeah.
spend some
Oh,
time
yes. Yes.
together. But I really appreciate you spending time with me today, and sharing some very, very important things, and talking about those things, and sharing those things with people that may not know how those things are done and how important they are.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you. And I enjoyed myself, and I feel good. So thank
Good,
you.
good.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you feel good, because I don't want to like overstep my bounds, like I said, and I really appreciate you sharing with us about whole chunk culture. And so anybody that is out there that may be watching this, how could they, if they wanted to learn more or wanted to contact you or your team, how would they do that?
They can contact us through the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska website. And then in there, you're going to follow on those tabs. It will tell about all our different programs. But then we're down on one of those tabs under the tribal court. It will say Human Services. And then it will also, you'll see our Preserve Native Families unit. And then in there, I have my email address, and that is Angie.Walker@winnebagotribe.com. And then also you can just, like I said, on the website is the best because
Okay.
it's quicker.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Angie.
You're
And
welcome.
for any of our listeners out there, we hope that you've enjoyed this, and stay tuned. We may come back with a part 2.
Thank you everyone for watching. If you have any questions or would like to know more about NICWIC, please visit our website at www.nicwic.org.